Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Before I begin, I would like to thank to Yanis Kalanakis for his kind invitation and Lisa to give you this Mycenaean seminar here at University of London. My first Mycenaean seminar was initiated by Cyprian Broodbank some 13 years ago. Now it's an honor and a pleasure for me to give a new talk here on my recent research. Today I will be talking about some of the new results of our recent interdisciplinary work at Çeşme Bağlararası, which we published briefly last year in the journal PNAS. The structure of my talk will roughly follow this outline. I would like to give you some general information about Çeşme Bağlararası excavations and tell you about the stratigraphic development of the site, the research questions we have been investigating at this site, and the evidence for cultural transformation of the site at the end of the Middle Bronze Age. Also, I like to talk a bit about our excavation methodologies and how it helped us discovering the volcanic ash and the tsunami deposits generated by the eruption of Terra. And also show you the evidence we have about the tsunamis, volcanic ash, and the victims at Çeşme Bağlararası. The fertile region of Izmir is located in the heart of central western Anatolian coastline. The region is connected to central Anatolia through the valleys of big rivers such as Hermos and the two meanders on one side, and acts as one of the most important gateways of Western Anatolia, opening to the Aegean Sea through the many harbor settlements located on the coast. The economic importance of the region is also underlined through metal ores of copper, silver, lead, and gold, particularly in the region of Bağlartepe. Therefore, with its fertile landscape and mineral resources, this unique location was an ideal landscape for habitation since prehistoric times. Izmir Region Excavations and Research Project is an ongoing project aiming to investigate and reconstruct the environmental changes and socioeconomic and political structure of Izmir region and coastal Western Anatolia during the prehistoric periods. IREP was founded in 1992 under the direction of my late professor Ayat Erkanal and has been continuing under my direction as a project of Ankara University Anküsam. The project includes excavations of the sites of Panastepe, Bağlartepe, Limantepe, London underwater excavations, Hocabaştepe, Karaburun, Kömürburnu, and Çeşme Bağlararası, all located around the Gulf of Izmir. Çeşme Bağlararası, which is going to form the main body of our talk today, is located at the westernmost tip of Urla Peninsula, in a narrow valley situated between two hills, and the harbor settlement must have shifted its location within this valley depending on the changes of the coastline. Excavations revealed the presence of a horizontally shifting settlement at Bağlararası, unlike the typically vertically stratified settlements of Anatolia. The reasons behind this movement must be sought in the changing coastline of the area. Çeşme Bağlararası is inhabited at least from the mid-3rd millennium BC onwards until the end of the late Bronze Age. Various gaps in the habitation history are most probably due to the horizontally shifting of the settlement. One extremely interesting layer is, of course, the layer of the volcanic ash found in 2012, which marks a distinctive phase in the habitation history of the site. Geoarchaeological work conducted by Ertuğ Öner and Serdar Vardar revealed a preliminary reconstruction of the site's formation through time. According to their research, Çeşme Bağlararası was situated adjacent to a river, and the earliest settlement was constructed adjacent and on top of a coastal marshy area. The fact that archaeological deposits at the site extends at least 2 meters below today's sea level clearly indicates the role of tectonics in the area as well. The active tectonic character of the region probably also has a role in the constantly shifting location of the settlement through time, and offers an explanation for various gaps in the habitation history at Çeşme Bağlararası within the excavated areas. A severe earthquake horizon of the Middle Bronze Age date is also found during the excavations. Bağlararası today lies at the heart of Çeşme, one of the most touristic destinations in Turkey. The site has one of the best harboring locations of the Aegean, which is serving as a marina today. Excavations revealed two settlement areas dating to the third millennium BC and the second millennium BC, as you can see here on this map. Our talk today will focus on the second millennium BC settlement. The earlier part of this period is so far unknown from Çeşme Bağlararası. The site began to flourish by the second quarter of the millennium, and fully organized harbor settlement belongs to this period. Centrally administered polities emerged both in Anatolia and the Aegean during this period, characterized by increased social complexity and intensification of interregional connectivity. Those are the Hittite Empire in the east and the Minoan palaces in the west. Çeşme Bağlararası, Phase 2, reflects the earliest fully organized plan of the second millennium BC settlement based on the available data at hand. At least 3 successive phases have been recorded, 2C to 2A, 2 being the best documented. A severe earthquake horizon is separating phase 2B from the following 2A, further highlighting the tectonic character of the area. The northeastern part of the fortifications surrounding the site was unearthed during the excavations. The construction technique indicates that the walls were constructed in blocks abutting to each other. A small bastion also built exactly at the adjoining parts of 2 separate fortification wall blocks for further strengthening the system. Çeşme Bağlararası 2B settlement consists of insula of houses separated from each other by streets that are attached to the fortification wall. The settlement has a main street, which is following the same layout as the fortification wall, and narrower side streets are attached to this main street. The majority of the houses are rectangular or trapezoid in shape and constitute their own walls attached to the adjacent one. They all have domed ovens in the left inner corner of the house, where you can see the stars in this photograph. The excavated part of the settlement constitutes a domestic corner where almost all of the buildings seem to have been used as houses, except for 2 distinctive structures which are located at important locations on the main artery at the junction points of the streets. One of these features is a trapezoid building with an entrance from the main artery. The main room is followed by 3 small subterranean rooms which are accessed from above. The main room included various installations associated with ground stones and were probably used as the main wine workshop where the grapes were crushed and juice was collected. The building was severely destroyed during the earthquake that brought an end to phase 2B at Çeşme Bağlararası. The 2 big face pots, jars that you see here, were found in the debris of the house collapsed into the street during the earthquake. The southern room yielded carbonized seeds of various species, indicating that it might have been used as a storage. The one in the middle was plastered all around, also the floor, and gave us an impression that this might have been used as a container for storing liquids, in this case for wine. And the final room included many ceramic pots, mainly for liquids and drinking. The wine workshop at Çeşme Bağlararası, located at a strategic location within the settlement, clearly demonstrates production beyond the level of single household and also gives us important hints regarding the socioeconomic organization of the inhabitants of the site during this period. A pottery kiln, unearthed yet on another strategic location, again on the main artery, further gives us a glimpse of organized production activities at Çeşme Bağlararası during the second quarter of the second millennium BC. Kitchen of a house, adjacent to the wine house, completely collapsed during the earthquake, thus offering us a unique case study for analyzing the complete inventory of a kitchen for this period. The earliest imported pottery of Çeşme Bağlararası also appears during this phase. They are all in fine wares, and a pedestal jar appears both in local fabrics as well as in imported fabrics. Phase 2B at Çeşme Bağlararası ends with a severe earthquake which destroyed almost most of the buildings and part of the fortification wall. The following phase, 2A, sees the reorganization of the site. Some streets of the previous period were blocked by the newly built walls or have been narrowed. Some walls went out of use. The most distinctive change is the reduction of the size of the settlement by building a new fortification wall on top of the adjoining walls of two houses, two phase 2B houses on the eastern side of the settlement. A probable gateway was also spotted on this site. Unfortunately, it was impossible to excavate and investigate it during the excavations. This horizon is marked with a construction of numerous plastered stone-lined or clay basins, along with hearths and ovens all around the settlement, probably indicating a phase of survival following the earthquake. The pottery tradition continued from the previous phase with no change. Even the imported pottery seems to follow similar patterns, implying similar maritime connections. Çeşme phase 2A ends with a so far unknown event, which may be related to another earthquake, but currently there's not enough evidence on this matter. The very well preserved contexts, two very well preserved contexts marking this phase, both have burnt destruction debris. That place over there. The site seemed to have been deserted following the end of phase 2A, and the deserted settlement turned into an area with half-buried house remains and potential source of building materials. No architectural features of the following level 1 has been found at the excavated trenches. The presence of this level is attested only in pits and destruction fields throughout the excavated area. The nature of these deposits will further be discussed in the later part of my talk. You can see the section there with all the 3 different phases. Based on our interdisciplinary studies and collaboration with Vangelio Kiryatsi and Maria Holeva from the Fitch Lab at BSA, we can now say that Çeşme Bağlararası was transformed into a very widely connected site, and its material culture shows distinctively Aegean features in phase 1. The study and scientific analysis of pottery from Çeşme Bağlararası revealed evidence for continuity, but also dramatic changes in certain aspects of the pottery technology, as well as the introduction of new shapes. Our Ankara University BSA Fitch Lab collaboration on the study of Çeşme pottery revealed that the most striking evidence for the transformation lies in the appearance of new category of ceramic vessels, richly decorated and linked to drinking sets that echo Cretan practices and reflect direct or indirect associations with the Minoan world. Our studies of level 1 pottery revealed continuity mainly in the pitoy and cooking pots that continued to be manufactured with the same techniques and the use of the same clay recipes and raw materials. On the contrary, striking differences are obvious in the tablewares used by the inhabitants. Most tableware is now manufactured through wheel coiling and with the use of different clay recipes and different types of raw materials. Overall, morphological standardization is more noticeable in this phase. While red slip decorated the tablewares of the previous period, level 2 at Çeşme Bağlararası. Now most of the numerous cups, bowls, and small to medium jugs are plain or covered with whitish slips. Greywares, as you can see here, also make their first appearance at Çeşme Bağlararası during this phase. Overall, we can say that there is a dramatic change in pottery manufacturing technologies from the previous period. New shapes dominate the pottery repertoire, among which incense burners and fireboxes, well known from Minoan cultural sphere, hold an important place. Part of the tableware now appears with painted decoration. These are the Minoan and the so-called Minoanizing examples. The Minoanizing vessels, much more frequent, show significant variation and feature 2 main categories: the most frequent, dark on light, and the less common, light on dark. The study of their technology and fabric composition has so far indicated their production in areas different to those of the previously analyzed Minoanizing pottery of the southeastern Aegean. The Minoan pottery, on the other hand, reflects highest quality examples of fine tablewares with dominant shapes like cups and jugs, and shows strong stylistic and technological similarities with Cnossian pottery, so their provenance is tentatively associated with Central Crete. A steatite stone vase from this level can be interpreted as an exotic prestige object, opening a new dimension to our understanding of the site's character during this phase. Based on the study of textile tools, we can say that the Middle Bronze Age toolkits for textile production at Çeşme Bağlararası comprise mainly spindle whorls and bone tools with horizontally pierced spools and discoid loom weights, making their first appearance in phase 2A. More striking is the introduction of new technologies which have strong affiliations with the Minoan world. This is the abundant appearance of Minoan-type discoid loom weights in the early late Bronze Age levels in Çeşme Bağlararası, which is our phase 1. The introduction of the warp-weighted loom points to the importance of pattern textile production, also observed elsewhere around the Aegean coast. According to the archaeobotanical studies, the transition from the Middle to Late Bronze Age at Çeşme Bağlararası also witnesses significant changes to arable farming practices. These pie charts show the proportions of major cereal crops in different phases of the site. While we can see broad continuity between the early and Middle Bronze Age, the onset of the Late Bronze Age sees a major increase in the importance of barley and the introduction of new crop species, pre-threshing wheat. These developments bring the range of crops cultivated at Çeşme Bağlararası in line with settlements from central Anatolia, Crete, and Greek mainland. As we were excavating at Çeşme Bağlararası, we were always chasing answers for the basic question of what happened to level 1 settlement and why do we find it only in pits and destruction field deposits. What we excavated in our first seasons between 2002 and 2004 was this picture, a perfectly preserved settlement with in situ contexts, streets, houses, doorways to the houses, very well preserved. And what we found in our excavations from 2009 onwards at the plot just adjacent to the previous one was this: a total destruction, lots of rubble, pits and fill material, which included pottery of our level 1, which is contemporary with late Minoan 1A period. A volcanic ash layer, which we identified back in 2012, after many years of analysis and interpretation, is finally proven to belong to the Bronze Age eruption of Terra volcano. It extends in an approximately 15-meter long area outside the Çeşme 2 fortification wall, meaning it was found at an area outside the already deserted settlement. Underneath the ash layer, layers of chaotic deposits, including big stones and rubble that yielded archaeological material contemporary with late Minoan 1A, appeared. So you can see it's actually that part with the rubble of stones on the photograph. And here you can see a detail of this rubble while we were excavating it, just to show you what kind of structure it had when we found it there. In the meantime, in the northern section of the trench, and after the excavations, the trench was looking like this. The section of the trench was looking like that, and it didn't look like a section of a settlement deposit. Rather, it looked like a fill deposit. So these aspects, seeing all this, I thought, could there be a tsunami deposit here in connection with the eruption of volcanic Terra volcano? And I contacted my good friend and colleague Beverly Goodman from Haifa University, with whom we already collaborated before at Çeşme and Limantepe. So she came and we did sampling from the section back in 2015. In the end, Çeşme excavations were completed in 2019. In the meantime, the analysis continued, and by the end of 2020, once Beverly also focused and completed her analysis, we managed to see the full picture at Çeşme Bağlararası. The site was devastated by a series of tsunamis generated by the eruption of Terra. I would like to show you this trench now as different stages of the trench, because Çeşme Bağlararası is the only known site at the moment where we recognize the tsunami deposit in the Aegean. And this is how a tsunami deposit looks like as you excavate it. It's very difficult to excavate. I mean, it was for us the most difficult, but in the end, once we excavated and scraped down all the fill deposits, this was the picture that was left from the previous period. So all these remains here belong to our level 2 period. And you can see here collapsed walls, the fortification wall. You see a collapsed wall and a collapsed wall of the other house as well. These were not in use at the time of the tsunami, but they were deserted. So when the tsunami came, it hit down all these remaining architectural remains of this deserted village, and they fall down. The sedimentological analysis of the sampling from the section where the ash was unearthed revealed 3 main sequences. We call them H1, 2, and 3. And the lowermost H1 sequence was further subdivided into 4 subphases over there, the green part. And it is this layer, H1, which includes material contemporary with Çeşme Bağlararası level 1 archaeologically. The base of the sequence, H1A, contains framework-supported large rubble, pottery, which is contemporary with late Minoan 1A, shell and bone. H1B, which is above, is similar but has matrix-supported sediments without bedding, a fine, non-continuous ash layer, imbricated inclusions, and smaller rubble pieces. These chaotic characteristics are topped by a thicker ash layer whose elemental values match tephra from the late Bronze Age Santorini eruption. The lower contact of the thick ash layer is sharp, and the upper contact has truncated flame-like structures. An approximately 8 centimeter thick layer, which we call H1C, above the ash, contains similar sediments and inclusions as H1B. However, instead of another ash layer, it ends with a distinctive charcoal-rich lens with charred remains. The top layer of this sequence, H1D, repeats the similar sediments, inclusions, and pottery, which is again late Minoan 1A, but with the addition of larger rubble, capped by imbricated pebbles and a very fine, terminally sealed layer lens, which is mud cap. The entire H1 sequence has an overall average foraminifera abundance of 5 to 9 individuals per cc and 2.9 cc species with a high proportion of staining. These are geological identifications that were done by Beverly, and I learned it through our study as well. The archaeological and sedimentological results from H1 horizon at Çeşme Bağlararası include ample indicators known from modern and paleo-tsunami deposits, including allochthonous marine inclusions, higher foraminifera abundance with staining, elemental trends skewed towards marine-like values, imbrication, collapsed structures, and non-deliberate burial. A patch of Cerestoderma glaucum, which are brackish water clams that live in highly concentrated beds, is also found within the tsunami debris next to the fortification wall. Patella marine limpet mollusks were also identified amongst the rubble. This species attaches itself to hard surfaces such as rocky coast or marine structures, and similarly could have arrived to the site during the tsunami. There are also signs of collapse and intrusion into the buildings at the site that doesn't fit earthquake horizon because the damage is unidirectional and nearby walls are unaffected. This is another part of the site. I'd like to show you again the hit of the tsunami and how it filled the structures. For example, in one of the houses connected to the fortification wall, a rubble layer intrudes from a collapsed portion of the wall and is blanketed by a darker soil that continues even further into the room. So all the dark colored soil you see here is the tsunami field, and this light color is the level 2 floors. Such deposits would have required a very strong force to dismantle and redistribute the stones. Tsunami deposits blocked by the fortification wall can also be seen outside the fortification wall. If you can see my mouse here, you can see this part of the wall collapsed into this structure and then covered by the tsunami deposits. And here outside the fortification wall, this is the fortification wall. Here is the rubble of the tsunami that hit the fortification wall and stayed outside. And this part collapsed inside and then covered by this dark colored tsunami field. We think we are looking at the tip of an iceberg here. There are many other contexts that we need to study and analyze in the following months and years to come. And just to give you a sneak peek of what is there to come, the photo above is the photo of the section where the red line is looking from the fortification side. So the fortification is here. Outside the settlement, the tsunami came like this, inside, from there. And this line, the section is this. So you can see here all these fields that are the tsunami fields. Various channelings of the tsunami intrusions can be seen in the photograph above. I would like to take your attention to the massive piece of mud brick wall there with the red star on the section, which probably collapsed from a nearby wall and got stuck in the tsunami field as well. Here you can see the blue line is the intrusions again, which clearly show us the tsunami intruded into the abandoned settlement in many different parts. These photographs are Sumatra tsunami, and they show the devastating dimensions of the disaster. But what's also striking here is the similar types of channelings of the tsunami intrusions into the settlements. Like you can see a certain structure here preserved, but then the water went in and destroyed further in an more inland structures. So we think what we were looking there in Çeşme Bağlararası is actually this kind of channelings. As you can see, as I said, yeah. But further away from this channeling of tsunami intrusions at Çeşme, another similar one was also excavated. The one with the red star. And this year, area yielded one of the most interesting discoveries of this horizon, namely a skeleton of an articulated young male human. The body was found within the rubble in a prone, slightly curved position, following the curvature of the limits of the tsunami intrusion. The skeleton doesn't show any signs of deliberate, culturally appropriate burial. And the location of the skeleton also exhibits classic signatures of deposition within the debris flow. So all this field here is the tsunami that came from this direction, and the skeleton was found under this rubble here. Just this part belongs to our level 2A, which is perfectly preserved. So basically the tsunami came in and destroyed only this part of it. It didn't go further. Here you can see the in situ level 2A remains. This is the our dead skeleton here, which is the only in situ preserved victim of the Terra eruption until today. The skeleton is currently being studied by Yılmaz Erdal from Hacettepe University for publication. And you can see the red star. The skeleton actually was found in this red star. This is another of these channelings that went inside. After a natural disaster, such as a tsunami, survivors are tasked with the responsibility of rescuing victims, recovering the dead, caring for the injured, and post-event cleanup. At Çeşme Bağlararası, this effort is visible in the presence of misshapen pits, interpreted here as the preserved remains from their effort to retrieve victims from the tsunami debris. The human skeleton was located about a meter below such a pit, suggesting that it was too deep to be found and retrieved, and therefore probably unknowingly left there for us to discover. In both the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami and the 2011 Tohoku earthquake tsunami, missing persons accounted for over 10% of the death, even a decade after the events. Victims that are swept up in the debris floor during the tsunami can get deeply buried within it or drown at sea, thereby making 100% victim recovery unrealistic. The Çeşme Bağlararası young man is an ancient example of the same phenomenon. These photographs are from Sulawesi in Indonesia. You can see how the debris look like, and the victims are within them. And this was a look as we were excavating the tsunami debris. So we think it's exactly the same situation. And there were these pits that were dug, look for their lost ones. And also we recognize there are certain pits which were dug to get stones to reconstruct their houses. The dating of the eruption of Terra is one of the hottest debates in Mediterranean archaeology. According to archaeological correlations, the event occurred during the late Minoan 1A period, which is also shown at Çeşme Bağlararası. This period is generally compared to the 18th Egyptian dynasty in the 16th century BC. This range of dates is termed the low chronology. However, measurements from radiocarbon dating of olive wood from the ash layers at Santorini have produced older ages, primarily in the mid-late 17th century BC, a range of dates referred to as the high chronology. This mismatch upsets the understanding of which people, what powers, and related events coexisted at that time. In our recent study, we published 9 new radiocarbon dates, all coming from the deposits of Çeşme Bağlararası Level 1, which is contemporary with late Minoan 1A. As you can see on the right lower corner, all radiocarbon ages have 2 sigma time ranges that coincide with both the high and low chronologies for the late Bronze Age Terra eruption and tsunami events. However, the samples also group into 2 clusters, one which encompasses more of the high range and the other the low range. It is important to note that this clustering has no association with stratigraphic position. The significance of this is that there is no gradient by depth with age, and therefore the horizons were deposited in rapid sequence. We suggest that because all the samples are from a well-sealed but mixed tsunami context, the youngest ages are more relevant for determining the age of the event itself. According to this principle, the entire event deposit cannot be older than the youngest measurement within it. The 2 clusters may reflect the mixing from the underlying archaeological site, which is an older, out-of-use portion of the site, while the younger cluster of ages is the material from which were introduced during the event itself. Accordingly, the 2 sigma radiocarbon age results of the sample closest to the human skeleton after calibration are 1612 to 1573 calibrated BC and 1565 to 1501 calibrated BC, the one with the red star, the lowest one, number 1. And for us, this would be the most representative of the event's age. While these ages do not negate either chronology, it does limit the age to no older than 1612 BC and includes ample support for low chronology. And we think it's actually late, even later. We are very well aware that the calibration within this time period is notoriously problematic and has long been the subject of extensive research. While the dates presented here do not definitely resolve the issue, they do provide fresh radiocarbon date from a well-sealed archaeologically associated Terran eruption-related event horizon in the Aegean and has already opened new discussions on the subject. The Bronze Age Terra eruption is probably the biggest natural disaster that left clear chronological markers like volcanic ash, tsunami deposits during the Holocene. We propose that eruption of Terra volcano produced a series of tsunami landfalls that also arrived at the Western Anatolian Aegean site of Çeşme Bağlararası in the semi-closed Bay of Çeşme within a short period of time. We think Çeşme Level 1 settlement was located a few hundred meters north of the excavated areas and is currently lying under the modern town of Çeşme. So the red star is where we excavated, and the yellow star is where we think the settlement was during the time of the eruption of Terra. The arrival of the tsunamis must have literally wiped out the entire settlement and brought its debris into and over the ruins of the nearby old settlement, which was already out of use at the time. Thus, all the level 1 material found at the excavation most probably arrived as part of a tsunami deposit. There are 4 discernible horizons identified, though more could be present. The identification of multiple tsunami events at Çeşme Bağlararası supports the proposed view that there were distinctive eruption phases with varying hiatuses between them. While many tsunami scenarios concentrate attention towards the east, southern, or southeastern directions, or near field along the outskirts of the island itself, very few simulations included an area as far north as Çeşme. Discovery of a tsunami deposit generated by the eruption of Terra at Bağlararası is the first evidence that supports this model. You can see the location of Çeşme Bağlararası on the map, which is approximately 227 kilometers away from Terra Island. And the map also shows the green dots are showing the ash, which was identified in the corings. Most of them are in the corings. And the one in Çeşme Bağlararası is in the excavation. Also, Çine Tepecik and Yasos are in the excavations. And the blue dots are the tsunami sites. Those are all from corings except for Çeşme discovery. So that's really interesting for us, and I will come to that. Çeşme Bağlararası is only one of the many coastal settlements impacted by the eruption and related earthquakes, tsunamis, ashfall, and fires, and will provide that type site reference for identifying others. Despite this presumed regional impacts, tsunami evidence has only been reported for a handful of late Bronze Age sites, namely Malya, Guves, Palecastro, Leton, Miletus, and Fethiye, which are all located in the east and south of Terra. We argue that this Tartov report is an artifact of methodological approach where A, the ability to identify paleo-tsunami sediments has advanced in recent years, and B, specifically with regard to the case of Terra Late Bronze Age eruption, the presence of tephra has been the baseline observation wherein consideration of a possible paleo-tsunami deposit followed. Although prevailing winds direct the ash cloud, the tsunami waves are propagated in a linear concentric pattern to large distances, providing there's no obstacle like islands or peninsulas, in which case the wave energy will bend, interfering and reflecting off one another, resulting in either increased or decreased wave heights and coastal inundation. Tsunamis, unlike tephra fallout, are independent of wind patterns. Therefore, even in the absence of ash fallout, in areas such as the Cyclades or Greek mainland, Western Aegean, tsunami deposits should also be present. Following the event, according to the archaeological remains, the thriving community at Çeşme Bağlararası ceased to exist for more than a century. In addition to loss of life and property damage, any coastal features or harboring areas would have been debris-strewn and made unusable or highly compromised for the period. The ash deposits would have altered the chemistry of soils, impacted aquifers, and damaged crops. Seaborne trade at the time of the event was central to the vitality and power of societies, in particular the sea-dominating Minoans. The social fallout from the destruction of the system's core infrastructure, ships, harbors, ports, coastal settlements, cannot be understated. While many people survived the event, the dynamics of everyday life, political relationships, and economic structures would have shifted. Disasters and the human reaction to them alter societies. In the case of late Bronze Age eruption of Terra, it can be considered a compound disaster where multiple short-term, like loss of life and property, settlement destruction, economic destabilization, emigration, and long-term challenges like crop loss, demographic and trade network shifts necessitated societal responses that would have had a multi-generational impact. While many people survived the event, their worlds would have changed. Çeşme Bağlararası, as seen here, lying under the modern town of Çeşme, finally began to tell us its story with all its glory and tragedy. Çeşmemen, a probable inhabitant of the site, is one of the first representatives of many people who died or went missing on that tragic day, but probably helped many others to be found by archaeologists in the future. Excavations and study of archaeological material at Çeşme Bağlararası has been continuing in a collaborative effort of international participation and interdisciplinary work. I would like to thank to everyone involved in the project for their valuable efforts and contributions. Our gratitude also goes to the supporting institutes of Çeşme Bağlararası excavations and the ERA project, particularly Turkish Ministry of Culture and Tourism, Ankara University and Institute for Aegean Prehistory. And I'd like to thank you for your patience too. Thank you very much.